Good evening from New York. I'm Chris Hayes. Donald Trump spent the afternoon where he spends many afternoons these days in court. He attended a procedural hearing in Florida as part of one of the federal criminal cases against him, specifically the one where prosecutors accuse him of stealing highly classified government secrets and then many times willfully obstructing justice by hiding the stolen documents from the government and repeatedly lying about it. Now, this case, I will admit, has receded a little bit from public memory, in large part, I think, because of the rather glacial pace at which it's moving. And that is thanks to one Judge Aileen Cannon. Judge Cannon was plucked from obscurity by Donald Trump. He elevated her to a lifetime appointment on the federal bench when she was just 39. Cannon was confirmed by the Senate in that brief lame duck session after Trump lost the 2020 election. She is now the one presiding over the documents case. She has done her best to slow the speed of the case down to a crawl. But it's worth keeping the details in this federal indictment front of mind because they really are truly damning. Every time I go back to them, I'm like, oh, my word. That is, in fact, why one key witness in the case came forward just this week to basically circumvent Judge Cannon's delay tactics and share what he knows directly with the American people ahead of November's election. Brian Butler, a multi-decade employee of Mar-a-Lago, says he unwittingly helped Trump's co-defendant, Waltine Nada, move boxes of classified documents to the ex-president's plane on the same day Trump was supposed to meet with federal prosecutors about those documents at Mar-a-Lago.
You noticed that he had boxes.
Oh, yeah. They were the boxes that were in the indictment, the white banker's boxes. That's what I remember loading.
And did you have any idea at the time that there was potentially U.S. national security secrets in those boxes?
No clue. No, I had no clue. I mean, we were just taking them out of the Escalade, piling them up. I remember they were all stacked on top of each other, and then we're lifting them up to the pilots.
Again, Trump is meeting at Mar-a-Lago with the FBI about the documents they say he has as Butler and Nada are loading said documents onto a plane. Butler also recounted Trump's attempted cover-up of his crimes in the form of a conversation with another Trump ally at Mar-a-Lago.
I remember him saying, hey, by the way, Walt's coming tomorrow. Oh, cool. That's great. I was like, okay. It wasn't until the following day when we're out walking, he's like, hey, by the way, it's a secret. Don't tell anybody Walt's coming. And, well, why? Well, he needs me to find something out before he gets here. Oh, what's that? He needs me to, how long the camera footage is saved at Mar-a-Lago. And I'm like, well, that's odd. Why do you need the camera footage? Why do you need to know how long it's saved? And his response was, I think they're looking for somebody that was there. I think the American people have the right to know the facts, that this is not a witch hunt.
That claim from the ex-president, this is all a big witch hunt, is effectively what his lawyers argued in court today. They tried to get the case dismissed this afternoon using some tortured legal logic, including a claim the law was, quote, unconstitutionally vague. Now, Judge Cannon ultimately rejected that particular argument today, choosing instead to basically kick the question down the road. It was sort of not really resolved. But in some senses, that's beside the point, as we keep hammering day after day on this program. Trump's main goal is simply to run out the clock. And crucially, Cannon did not give any update today on when she might actually bring this case to trial. That's really the crux of the whole issue. Because Donald Trump is facing serious legal jeopardy. Both federal indictments against him are incredibly damning. But even with access to money from small dollar donors, now possibly the Republican National Committee, the legal bills are going to continue to pile up. And even with the best representation available, the ex-president's best bet was never seeking an acquittal by a jury of his peers. The evidence against him is simply too strong for that. No, his best strategy was to simply find ways to delay all the cases against him until November, when he could potentially get elected president, and then as president, at least regards the federal cases, order his own Justice Department to abandon the pending cases against him. And that seemed like a wild strategy play. But in all honesty, it looks like he might actually get away with it. I mean, look, oftentimes, delays happen in the judicial system, even when judges are acting in good faith. We saw an example today when the Manhattan District Attorney's Office moved to delay its looming case against Trump for procedural reasons. That's the case where the ex-president is accused of bribing a porn star ahead of a 2016 election to keep quiet about an affair they apparently had while his wife Melania was at home taking care of their newborn son. This money was paid just weeks before the election. It was supposed to go to trial in a matter of days, but both sides have now agreed to push that date back in response to tens of thousands of pages of discovery material that was recently made available by federal prosecutors to New York prosecutors. Bragg's office has asked for just a 1-month delay. Trump's lawyers have predictably asked for 3 months. We've also seen a delay in the Fulton County, Georgia racketeering case against Trump over potentially inappropriate relationship District Attorney Fani Willis had with one of her prosecutors and whether the relationship constitutes a conflict of interest. Either of those delays are ideal, but they're sort of different in scope and motivation from the other more weaponized delay tactics that we've seen in these federal cases. Delay tactics aided and abetted by members of the judiciary who, oh, by the way, Donald Trump handpicked for their jobs. Like the Supreme Court of the United States with its extreme 6-member MAGA majority, 3 of whom owe their lifetime tenure to the ex-president. They have bent over backwards to appease Trump's desire for delay by sitting on his bogus immunity appeal for weeks before then scheduling oral arguments for literally the latest date that they are allowed, the last day of oral arguments. It's all a part of what looks to all the world, at least at this point, like a flagrant bid to push Trump's federal January 6th trial until after the election. That brings us back to Judge Aileen Cannon in Florida. Through the luck of the draw, randomly, she was assigned to Trump's documents case. At every single moment where she could choose between expedition or delay, she has more or less always chosen to delay. Now is when the rubber really hits the road because she's eventually going to have to actually set a real trial date. We'll see if she chooses the most obvious form of favor for the guy who gave her the job she currently holds and could very well promote her more in the future, delaying his trial until after the election. It's entirely possible. It's why one conservative commentator gloated that Trump hit the, quote, inside straight he needed to avoid legal accountability before the election. It's true. He was dealt a good hand. It's looking like it was only because he hired the dealers. On one level, you could say Donald Trump's relationship to democracy and self-governance seems pretty straightforward. He doesn't care about them. It's because he doesn't like to lose, right? He's lost a Democratic election. He's desperate for criminal immunity, so it's sort of instrumental for him. No democracy, no losing, no problem. I think it's actually deeper than that, deeper than a kind of instrumental, well, whatever works best. I think opposing democracy isn't just convenient for him. It's actually a fixed, strongly held ideological belief. You can see that all the time in his constant praise of dictators.
It's good to have a good relationship with Putin and Xi and all these people that have lots of nuclear weapons. And Kim Jong-un I had a good relationship with. He's a tough, smart guy.
Tough, smart guys. He always says that. He had Werb on the other day, and he says he's the boss. What he says goes. He likes it. He likes the idea of a strong man who's tough with his people. He prefers dictatorship to democracy as a fixed principle, and not just on day one. But again, still, that's all very rhetorical. If you want an incredible example of this antagonism to democracy in practice, just look at what's going on at the Republican National Committee, where Trump, as a presumptive nominee, is purging the party and remaking it in his image. Now, actual Republican election experts have been at odds with Trump for years because he tells Republican voters and Trump voters that mail-in voting is rigged. Remember this, right? Spent months saying it. Remember back in November 2020, after Joe Biden won and Donald Trump denied the result, there were still those 2 critical Senate runoff elections in Georgia that would determine party control of the Senate. And RNC chairwoman Ronna Romney McDaniel was confronted with the real-world effect of Trump's election lies.
Machines are switching the votes, and we go there in crazy numbers, and they should have won, but then there's still...
Yeah, we have to... we didn't see that in the audit, so we've got to just... That evidence I haven't seen, so
Right.
we'll wait and see on that.
How are we going to give money and work when it's already decided?
It's not decided. This is the key.
No.
It's not decided. If you lose your faith and you don't vote and people walk away, that will decide it.
It's not rigged. I promise you, please vote. Remember, Democrats swept both of those Senate seats? So the RNC realized they had a problem on their hand, this bizarre vendetta Trump had specifically against mail-in voting, which wasn't what the gentleman there was referencing, but mail-in voting in particular was really hurting them. Because as Ronna McDaniel tried in vain to tell those Georgia Republicans, mail-in balloting is an incredibly useful way to bank votes. You never know what's going to happen on Election Day. You certainly don't want to wait for the last second and then, I don't know, there's a blizzard and the weather's bad. Or there's an emergency, or, voters can't get out of work before the polls close. Not only that, but this is crucial. As a major party organizer, if you bank those votes early, if the people that you know are voting for you vote early, then you have a smaller, what's called voter universe to deal with on election day to go contact those voters and turn them out. It is an efficient way to campaign democratically. It's just smart, good tactics, right? It's not a partisan or ideological issue at all, which is why after the 2020 debacle, the RNC launched the Bank Your Vote campaign to, as they put it, get our voters to vote by mail or early in person and ballot harvest where permitted. All things the last Republican president said were corrupt and fraudulent, wrongly. But now, Donald Trump could be the next Republican president, and his people have taken over the RNC. And guess what he's doing as part of his remodeling over the RNC? The much heralded Bank Your Vote program, aimed at getting Republicans to vote early, will shift to a Grow the Vote program focused more on expanding the party's outreach to less likely Trump voters, according to the Washington Post. Which, okay, voter outreach is good, I guess. But also, this is key, Trump's top campaign aide at the RNC also installed Christina Bobb, a former OAN reporter and an ardent 2020 election denier, as, listen for the title, Senior Counsel for Election Integrity. So, to recap here, instead of making Republicans comfortable with early and mail-in voting, they're killing that idea, and with the naming of Bobb to the senior role, appear to be going all in on election integrity, which means suing election officials and challenging voter access. The new institutional ethos is less party of Lincoln and more my pillow guy.
People say, well, let's be like the Democrats and vote early and ballot harvest and all this. No, you lose your country. That's where all the crime is in the early voting and stuff.
No, that's nuts. You're wrong. But that's what Donald Trump wants. Remember, he was complaining about the election being rigged ad nauseum before he even lost it in 2020. Remember that? And here's the party he now runs, making an affirmative choice backed up by money and manpower and logistics, a choice to put their effort into trying to suppress the vote, election integrity, stop people from voting, putting up hurdles, rather than the effort they had in place to just straightforwardly win more votes. Make it easier for your people to vote. That's what they're committed to. Because Donald Trump hates the idea of people choosing their leader. He would prefer it if the leader could choose his people. It's really one of his few deeply held core beliefs.